Hi there, I've already discussed this story on my channel, however there have been updates. After my wife admitted to infidelity while intoxicated, I became a robot and ejected her. She made every effort to win me back, including 3MS, but I decided to get a divorce. After 9 years together, my wife Kate, 30F, and I, 32M, have been married for 4 years. Our partnership has been wonderful, kind, and encouraging. We rarely argue, have excellent communication, and our relationship in bed has only become better with time. We've talked about infidelity in the past, and I've always made it plain that if it happened again, we would break up. Kate spent last weekend visiting her family, which was a typical weekend. We had a small dispute on Friday night over keeping the house clean, so we didn't talk much on Saturday, but I knew she was heading out to a bar with some friends. I had complete faith in her, so I didn't give it any thought. I texted her before going to bed, wishing her a good night. Kate had left me a missed call at 4 in the morning on Sunday, so I called her right away to see how she was doing, but she didn't pick up. I tried again a few hours later, but there was still no response. She was well and will be returning by car, according to a message I received about an hour later. Kate arrived home in the late afternoon and looked terrible. She appeared like a shell of a person, had been obviously crying, and was unusually not wearing makeup. I could see immediately away that something wasn't right, but she refused to give me a hug and hardly said anything. I made her some tea and settled her down on the couch. I tried to soothe her, but she started crying uncontrollably for at least 10 minutes when I gently asked her to tell me what was wrong. Then, pausing every few sentences, she told me that she had slept with someone after the pub the night before. Something broke in my brain right then. It's impossible for me to put it in words. I got up right away, hopped in my car, and headed out. I spent nearly an hour strolling in a park. I shut off my phone since Kate was phoning all the time. Upon arriving home, I proceeded to our bedroom after grabbing 2 suitcases from the garage. I filled them with some of Kate's clothes and shoes and set them outside the front entrance. Kate was sobbing while curled up into a ball on the living room floor. Kate needed a place to stay and a ride to her apartment, and she could explain everything to her best friend later, I informed her over the phone. Kate's best friend lives nearby. I informed Kate that her friend was coming to take her up, and that I would be gone for an hour. In an attempt to stop me from departing, she held onto my legs. Kate was gone, and the cases were gone, when I got back home. With a clearer head on Monday, I took one of Kate's frequent calls and requested that she write me an email containing as much information as possible about that evening. If she omits anything, there is no chance of a reconciliation. This email arrived on Monday night, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Everyone has been attempting to get in touch with me ever since, but all I have been doing is working out, and sleeping. I told her to talk to Kate and shut the door in her face when one of her pals showed up at my place demanding an explanation. In addition, I've been in contact with divorce attorneys, transferred funds to different accounts, and blocked Kate and her pals on all platforms. It seems like I've been operating on autopilot for everything I've done since learning. I don't feel very emotional, irate, or disturbed, simply numb. Kate left a letter for me through the door yesterday, but I'm not sure if I should meet tomorrow. Shall we get together? Will anything change as a result? Is it worth attempting to make amends? How do I stop feeling like a robot, and is this normal? Just to clarify, Kate told me it was consensual when I arrived home the first time. Despite her inebriation, she was a skilled worker. Update. I didn't read the email, but I did decide to meet with Kate after reading your comments. Kate arrived at the house yesterday, and she looked awful when I opened the door. We sat down to discuss after I prevented her from trying to hug me and murmuring an apology. I began by informing Kate that I would be recording the audio of our chat, and she gave her consent. I informed her that I hadn't read her email and requested her to elaborate on what had happened. Kate told me what she had to drink after telling me she had gone to the bar with 2 friends that I know and like. She drank the same amount, a few glasses of wine and a cocktail that we usually do when heading out to dinner, so I was shocked at how little she actually consumed. She acknowledged that she was not too inebriated. Max, the 27-year-old brother of one of her pals, Sarah, came to pick them up at midnight. I had heard them joke about Max having a strong crush on Kate since high school. It's a running joke in their circle. After getting some food, the 4 of them left to separate places, leaving Max and Kate alone. After working all day, Kate stated she would just book an Uber from his apartment because she didn't want him to travel the 20 minutes to her parents' house. When she tried to order an Uber inside his apartment, she was unable to do so. Max offered to remove the sofa and let her crash on his bed he would drop her off in the morning. Kate declined and carried on looking for an Uber. Max gave her a kiss as they sat on his bed. After she gave him a kiss in return, they had intercourse. She sobbed from guilt after that, and Max drove her home. After an additional hour of crying, she attempted to contact me to inform me of her actions. Kate kept crying uncontrollably, and we had to pause quite a few times. She told me it was a terrible mistake, that she just loved me, that she got caught up in the moment, and so on. I told her after she finished that her tale didn't make sense, but it didn't matter because I was done for the time being. This led to yet another meltdown. I informed her that, although I would carry on with the divorce proceedings, we would be living apart for the next month. We would both stay loyal, I informed her, and we would both get a full STD panel. She was also urged to tell our mutual friends and family about what had transpired. I would be open to another meeting if she adheres to these guidelines so that we can discuss options other than divorce. She wholeheartedly agreed to this, but it was obvious that she didn't think I would stick with her. I understand that a lot of you will disagree with my choice, but I need to make sure that getting a divorce is the best course of action after I've had time to consider all that has transpired. Even though I'm still 99% certain that's where we're going, I need to be positive. Update 2: a few things have happened over the past week, so if anyone is interested, I thought I would write an update. I'm not in robot mode anymore, to start with. Although I've been keeping busy with work and fitness, I've been experiencing severe outbursts of anger and betrayal. Since they found out, my friends have also been amazing and have been dragging me out of the home to go hang out. I chose to read the email and now regret doing so. Though Kate did not mention walking into Max's apartment to book an Uber, the story she gave in the email was essentially the same. Additionally, there were quite extensive information about what they did, how long they did it for, and that they had reportedly used a condom. I will always remember this description. Although many of the people who initially criticized me for throwing Kate out of the house have now apologized, they are still free to retain it. We had a nice relationship prior to all of this, so I chatted with Kate's parents when they apologized. They stated they understood if I chose to file for divorce, but they pleaded with me to try to sort things out. I remained open to both possibilities. Kate's other friend who was present that evening got in touch with me to share her version of events. Bar food home. It matched up very well. Kate was invited to remain at her place, but she declined, stating that she had an early morning drive home. It seems that Max was adamant about taking Kate home. The version of events she related did not include Kate attempting to hail an Uber rather. It stated that Kate accepted Max's invitation to enter. She told me it was around a year ago when I asked her if she had ever suspected anything before. When she came to meet Kate for coffee, she discovered Max seated next to her. When questioned about it, Kate claimed they had just happened to meet. Despite appearing guilty though. Max's sister Sarah also contacted me and I had a conversation with her as well. She told me a similar story, and she was upset with both Kate and Max. She had not spoken to Kate since learning about Max's situation, and it seems that her entire family is upset with him. On behalf of her foolish brother, she apologized and claimed that since high school, she had urged him to avoid Kate. Nothing more, in her opinion, had transpired between them. Although I haven't heard from Kate at all, I did learn that she was planning to move into an Airbnb close to our house. She has called in ill from work a few times in the previous several weeks, suggesting that she is not handling this well. I requested her parents to watch her, and she has the support of the friend she presently lives with. This past weekend, her parents traveled to see her. Over the weekend, I went out with some pals and ended up getting wasted at a bar. I was speaking with a female there, and while I should have stopped myself to maintain my dignity, I decided not to go home with her. After hearing what they had done and reading the email, I lost optimism that this might be fixed. Particularly because I am aware that she is lying to me about other matters, so who knows. I'm going to move forward with the divorce, and I might not even wait to tell Kate that this is my final choice for a month. Version 3. I considered sharing this update, but since many people seem interested in this mess, I decided to go ahead and post it. I apologize if this is too personal. Last week, Kate emailed me to ask if I could pick up some items she required for work. I grudgingly agreed to let her visit on Thursday night since I would be at the gym, as my lawyer had advised me not to deny her access to the property or her belongings. When I arrived home at 8, she was still there even though I had told her to go by 7:30. She was slicing veggies for dinner when I stepped in, and she had a few work-related stuff next to the steps. With her hair and makeup done, she looked stunning in one of my favorite outfits. Everything had been cleaned and organized. She started for the door when I politely urged her to leave right away, but she stopped and asked if we could talk instead. Though I should have declined, I ultimately consented. After sitting down, we had a discussion that veered from topic to issue for about an hour. She consented when I informed her once more that I would record the audio. I began by inquiring as to whether she had adhered to our last conversation's arrangement. She mentioned doing a pregnancy test, which came back negative, and an STI test, all of which were negative. Luckily, mine came back at 2. She hadn't been with anybody else, and had also disclosed what had happened to a select friends and family members, many of whom were hostile and avoided her company. Several questions that had been circling about in my head for the past few weeks were answered by myself. She stated that the Uber tale was a lie, and that she went into Max's apartment because he invited her for a drink, even though she knew something fishy was going to happen. She is unable to provide any other explanation for her actions beyond selfishness and a need for attention. She added that she had emailed Max a few times over the years because he would always make her feel good and shower her in compliments. He would usually start things off, and she said she had never sent him any explicit messages or images, but she was obviously cautious not to lead him on. Kate also revealed to me that prior to our relationship, they had dated for roughly 6 months but never had sex. She acknowledged that she was naturally intrigued. According to her account of getting caught at the coffee shop, she texted Max to let him know where she was, and he asked what she was up to. Since we've been dating, she insisted, this is the first time they've ever done anything. She said that our relationship had all it needed and that she hates herself for upsetting her ideal marriage and hurting me so badly. I told her there was no use in pursuing the conversation because I still didn't think her tale was credible. She questioned, what would I need to do to make this right with composure, offering her phone, sharing her location, refusing to leave the house without me, etc. It was obvious that she had done some investigation. Saying that I would never get over the betrayal, I had no intention of being her prison guard. Then things took a completely unexpected turn that threw me off guard. She requested me to stop recording because she wanted to talk to me privately about something that she didn't want other people to know about. She persisted grudgingly after I declined. She made it obvious that she was okay with it all by asking if I had had any sexual relations with anyone else since all of this. We used to have sex almost every day, so when I told her no, she said I must be crazy, and we started talking about all the terrible things I could do to and with her. This featured a lot of kinky activities that I'd only occasionally or never tried before. Even if we didn't end up together again, she expressed her desire to attend to my needs. She promised to locate partners for us to slash me, or we could be open on my side exclusively, and have as many threesomes as I desired going forward. I didn't say anything until she asked who I wanted to have a threesome with, despite her desperate attempts to get me to turn on her. I said for some reason that her coworker was a complete knockout, and 5 years younger than Kate. She was taken aback by this, but she was too far gone to inquire what I planned to do with her. I described a quite graphic scenario in detail, and Kate was supportive up until I mentioned that she would only be observing. She was surprised by this again, but she accepted it. Later on, I came to the realization that everything I had said had been a small-minded attempt to harm Kate, which made me feel bad. She was clearly sure that her plan was working, because she got into my favorite sofa position, pulled up her dress, and begged me to have sex with her. I'll admit that, despite not having my head in the game, for a brief while my body reacted. All of a sudden, everything became clear, and I could no longer shake the contents of her email. I started laughing for no apparent reason. Not a giggle, but a real, hearty laugh. She moved away, looked hurt, and began to cry. I informed her it was time to go, and she hurried out of there, most likely feeling embarrassed. We're getting divorced, therefore I also told her to hurry up and get a lawyer. I had escaped a bullet, as evidenced by the post-nut clarity that followed her departure. I want to get this divorce started as soon as possible, and I have a meeting with my lawyer later this week. Last-minute revision. I thought I would provide everyone who is interested a last update on the situation. It's been a difficult few months, and I haven't seen Kate in person very often. We hadn't spoken for a few weeks, so I thought we should talk about things more rationally. We went to lunch and discussed all that had transpired and possible paths to reconciliation in a cool, collected manner. I believe Kate when she says she will stop at nothing to get things back on track, but she made no promises. Subsequently, Kate requested that I accompany her to her therapist, who specializes in treating married couples. It took me a few days to decide to agree. The session was difficult and filled with emotions, but I never received a clear explanation for Kate's decision to cheat. The therapist was shockingly judgment-free and fair to us both. We talked about reconciliation once more, but I informed her that I believed it would be best to move forward with the divorce. I drove up to her parents' house last week to return some tools I had taken on loan from her dad. In order to allow us time to discuss, we had arranged for Kate to attend and for her parents to go out for a few hours. It was difficult, but I talked with her parents alone, and they were both really supportive despite being upset. I made it quite apparent to Kate during our talk that, although I had given it a lot of thought, I wanted to proceed with the divorce. It all came down to the reality that, in my opinion, we would never return to our previous state, and I genuinely don't think I would ever be able to move on from the betrayal. It might take 10 years of diligent work to win back the trust, even if we are successful, and I cannot accept that kind of risk. After Kate eventually agreed, we had a civil conversation about how we would divide our assets, sell the property, and other things. We also sent emails to our respective attorneys. We parted amicably after our exchange. The house will be listed for sale shortly, and the divorce should be finalized by the end of the year. We have decided not to get in touch or begin dating until everything is settled. After going through a few casual encounters, it feels weird to be returning to being single. I've been going to the gym, hanging out with friends and family, and picking up my interests again. Even though I'm still inconsolable over the dissolution of my marriage, I have hope for the future and believe that it has helped me become a better person. We are grateful to everyone who has provided guidance and encouragement. The second tale. My spouse had an affair, but she assured me there was nothing to worry about. When I started to suspect her, I checked her phone to find out. I never thought I'd be posting about my personal issues on the internet. However, here I am. Not only am I complaining, but I also want to demonstrate to others that there is hope even at the darkest moments. Hello, my name is Tom, and I work as a software developer. I'm just your typical man. However, the actual focus of this story is my ex-wife Sarah and how her actions completely changed my life. I met Sarah almost 8 years ago through mutual friends. She was really dedicated about her vocation as a realtor. Her passion and commitment to her clients impressed me. Sarah exuded a contagious enthusiasm and was constantly active, constantly trying to make things better for us. She gave you the impression that everything was achievable with enough work. When we first started dating, I seemed to have joked that I would trust her to assist me in purchasing a home and possibly a lot more. I replied yes when she asked if I meant it. She enthusiastically informed me about all of her favorite movies when we went on our first date to the cinema. With Sarah, conversation came so easily that I was won over right away. Although I don't think in love at first sight, she almost convinced me of it at the time. As soon as we started dating, I was aware of Sarah's busy schedule. The real estate industry is a demanding one with erratic, lengthy hours. She appreciated my support for her work. Nevertheless, her more erratic schedule and my consistent 9-to-5 job helped us work well together. I knew she liked what she did, and I loved her, so I didn't mind. However, there was one thing that concerned me right away. Sarah developed a close relationship with a coworker I'll refer to as Mike. They appeared to hang around frequently, and Mike was employed at the same real estate company. I didn't give it much thought at first since, well, they were coworkers. However, as time passed, I observed that they were holding work meetings more frequently. I always thought Sarah spoke about Mike in an odd way. Usually, I'm not a jealous person. Actually, on the contrary, I wanted Sarah to be free to follow her professional ambitions. However, there was something that truly bothered me about the fact that she would always answer Mike's calls, even on our dates. Every now and then I would remark on how she seemed to be in love with Mike. Sarah used to get defensive and lash out at me, but now as I think back on it, I wonder if that was more of a guilty than a light-hearted joke. I mentioned it in passing once to see how things stood. I tried to sound casual as I continued. You and Mike seemed pretty close. Sarah dismissed it with a giggle. Tom, it's nothing at all. We simply collaborate well. You are not in need of concern for him. I truly wanted to believe her. Still, something didn't feel quite right. I didn't press the matter though. We were content, and I didn't want to stir up any unnecessary controversy. After Mike moved to a new department, they eventually began to spend less time together. Jokingly, Sarah said she was sorry to see him go. I responded with a jest that she was all mine now, not Mike's. However, a part of me now questions whether that was a joke at all. After a few years together, I asked Sarah to marry me, and she accepted. After getting married and purchasing a home together, we welcomed a stunning baby daughter not long after. Everything in life appeared well. Yes, Sarah was still very busy at work, but I thought it was just part of being married to someone in a high-pressure profession. For a while, everything felt great, and our daughter Lily became our universe. However, Mike soon resumed his appearance in the photo. Not all the time, but frequently enough for me to notice. Sarah would suggest in passing that she might run into him at work or while working on a deal. After all, we'd been married for years and had a child together, so I told myself it was nothing. She wouldn't put all that at risk for a quickie at work, surely? One day, Sarah mentioned that Mike had returned to their office. There was a remark that they needed more employees at that branch. If it would affect her work, I questioned. Sarah became combative and maintained that nothing was happening. It was then that I trusted her. She claimed that, although Mike and his girlfriend had recently broken up, they were still a good combination when it came to closing transactions. Things began to shift around a year ago. Sarah started to spend an increasing amount of time at work. Claiming she had to stay for closings or client meetings, she would arrive home late. I didn't question it at first. This was typical for her profession, and I was aware of the potential stress in the real estate industry. However, as the late nights increased in frequency, I couldn't get rid of the uneasy feeling. I began to focus more intently and became aware of small details. How she'd go out of her way to indicate how busy Mike was these days, how she'd smile at her phone and then suddenly get a text. Everything appeared too chance-based. Sarah stopped being as affectionate as well. Despite our hectic schedules and our child, I noticed that she frequently went to bed without giving me a goodnight kiss. She would stiffen up when I gave her a hug, then give me one back. There was a strong unease. Even though I didn't want to accept it, skepticism started to gnaw at me. After Sarah returned home late one evening, I made up my mind to find out for sure. While she was taking a shower, I went through her phone, something I'm not proud of. Indeed, I discovered flirtatious texts between her and Mike far too personal to be between just coworkers. There were loose plans to get together for client meetings and showings at strange hours. When I looked up her location history, that was the last straw. I discovered that she had been visiting an address which just so happened to be Mike's, that wasn't mentioned on any of her most recent transactions. For months, she had been deceiving me by sneaking out to see him while I was at home looking after our baby. I was enraged. I didn't know how to confront Sarah without going crazy. I thus devised a scheme. I made the decision to meet Sarah and Mike for a showing by pretending to be a prospective buyer. Not only did I want to make sense of it all for myself, but I also wanted to hold Sarah accountable for her deeds. Pretending to be interested in a house Sarah and Mike were co-listing, I gave their office a call. They both agreed to see me at my private showing appointment, which I scheduled. I arrived early on the day of the showing and waited in my car. I saw Sarah and Mike pull up side by side, giggling and appearing overly at ease in each other's company. I caught them kissing then. That very moment, in plain daylight. Not even her wedding ring was on Sarah's finger. It revealed to me how little she appreciated our marriage outside of our house. My desire was to flee and ignore what I had witnessed. However, I was aware that I had to carry out my plan for my own benefit. I exited the vehicle and came over to them. Sarah's expression when she saw me was priceless. Mike turned pale, and she froze. I was there and they understood exactly why. I said something even though I didn't have to. I told Sarah she could have Mike if she wanted to discard everything we owned. I wouldn't put up with her stuttering excuse. I turned around and walked out of sight, leaving them both stunned. I packed up Sarah's belongings and instructed her to go that evening. I refused to put up with her mistreating me and our union while we were living together. After everything Sarah had done, I was not going to let Lily leave with her, so I kept her with me. The divorce procedure was cruel. Sarah attempted to shoulder the blame by saying I was exaggerating and it was simply an error. However, I had all the proof I required. Ultimately, I was granted sole custody of Lily. All that remained for Sarah was the fallout from her own deeds. Mike too had karma coming to haunt him. It turns out that he was having an affair with Sarah while still married. Mike's wife also filed for divorce after learning of it. In the end, Mike lost both his family and his credibility. Although it's been a difficult journey, my main goal has been to reconstruct my life. Now that Lily is my entire universe, I will stop at nothing to provide her with the finest life imaginable. It's not easy being a single father, but my family and friends are a terrific support system. We are managing it. This is my narrative. Thinking about it still hurts. I recall how painful it was to learn that Sarah was capable of hurting me in that way after all the years and effort I had put into our relationship. Even now, the memory of it aches. But now that I can finally go on, I can.